Closing of the bio that Rachel read to you. My son Jack, he's a 13-year-old. Let me just say he's a 13-year-old boy. And if you have children, you can relate, grandchildren, nephews, all of those things. The young lady in the middle is my daughter, who's 28 years old, coming this Saturday, Yuri. Yuri owns her own business in Fort Smith, and she attended Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas, on a soccer scholarship. And the gentleman, Jay, that's State Representative Jay, but he prefers to go by Jay if anybody knows him. And that's my husband of 30 years. And he and I began this journey. So let's rewind back to 2014, even earlier than that. Jay was diagnosed with cancer. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, anyone that knows or has experienced a cancer diagnosis with someone close to you, it just stabs you in the heart because you don't know what your story will be. And that was a part of our story. Nothing that we ever could have imagined, but it happened. Jag was just a few months old when we received the diagnosis, and both of us had really. I had left my career in corporate America. I was a VP of operations for a hotel chain called Accor North America that was worldwide, but I was over their operations for the Red Roof Inn brand, Texas, Louisiana, as well as Mississippi. So I traveled extensively with my job. Jay and I had traveled across the United States really after we graduated from college. I myself from Atlanta, and lived in Joplin, Missouri. We lived in Lexington, Kentucky, Dallas, Texas, Austin, Texas, until we made our way to Phoenix, where we actually received the cancer diagnosis. We were 18 hours away from Fort Smith. And I told Jay, I said, I think it's time to go home. I think it's time to get closer to home. Now, keep in mind, we were growing our life out in Phoenix. I was very involved in the community in Phoenix, owning a popcorn and candy store named after our daughter Yuri in Scottsdale, Arizona, which was a fabulous experience for us, which really fascinated me or drew me into the importance of downtowns because I started out as a business owner without a brick and mortar, and we just went to farmers markets, went to downtown events. So I saw the sense and love of community firsthand as a vendor. And as a vendor, and we used to call ourselves carnies because we would pick up like a road show and go from place to place to place. So that was really exciting for me, but at the same time, it was fulfilling. It was all of the things. So I had to make the choice to leave just to get closer to the family once we realized Jay was good and he was in remission. So I'm bringing you into 2015 now, everyone. Now, if you see these pictures, I want you to just start reacting in the chat. If you know any of these characters that you see in this picture, this is my community, and this was my welcome wagon when I came into back into Fort Smith. The first thing I want to tell you is that before Jay and I moved back, we looked at and interviewed in Dallas. We looked at jobs in Northwest Arkansas, but something just kept saying, you need to go back to your community that you were born and raised, that he and I were both born and raised, but we left for a little while. So the gentleman in the middle, Mayor George McGill, if you know Mayor George McGill of Fort Smith, you know a legend. He also served as a state representative. I see those hands going up. Mayor McGill is serving our community currently, and he has done a fabulous job. What many people don't realize is that Mayor McGill he was involved in the community and community service before it became a buzzword. And as I was going off to college, he, being a part of my community, allowed me, as he was sitting in his community on a board, with the Girls Club in Fort Smith provided an opportunity for me to get a full ride or a sizable scholarship from the Girls Club, one of the largest that they had given away to date. And with George McGill's work, he inspired me. And because he didn't tell me what he did until many years later. And it made a lasting impression on me, so much so when he was running for his first term as state representative. I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I called him on the phone and I said, I would love to donate to your campaign. He said, You don't have to worry about that. I don't have an opponent. And I said, What? And he said, I don't have an opponent. And it was because of community. The next person I want to talk to you about, George was that pre me going and traveling the world and coming back to Fort Smith. When I came back to Fort Smith, my first stop was my sorority sister, who has all of this wad of money in her hand. Her name is Yvonne Keaton Martin. And if you don't know, I mean, in the chat, can some people text and or put in there, how old do you think this lady is? Just put in the chat. I want to see some of the responses here. Not say 80, keep going. 85. One more, one more. 100. Okay, 100 is very close. She is 93 years young. She still drives. She still gets around. She's still active in our sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. She is very active. She's actually leaving and moving to Sacramento. But as soon as I landed in Fort Smith, her word of advice to me was get involved, stay involved, and don't say no. Give as much as you possibly can. I learned a lot from her. She is a phenomenal person, and her legacy is great here in our community. After I had my conversation with her, by leaning in, getting involved in the community, I was able to become a part of Leadership Fort Smith. Most of you know about Leadership Arkansas, and some communities across the city or the state have cities that represent leadership. Enter your city, if you will. Well, the man that you see there with the glasses is Richard Griffin, and he is Preservation 1000. I can't even say he's Preservation 101. We were given a tour of downtown Fort Smith in 2015, 2016 as Leadership Fort Smith members. And at the end of our tour, there was a big storm, surprise, coming through Arkansas at that time. And we were at the Fort Smith Museum of History. And Richard was standing up there giving his presentation, and I'm wide eyed listening to his stories about his preservation efforts dating back to 1996 and fast forward. Afterwards, he finished his presentation. His presentation. Many people in the audience were, as he said, falling asleep. I literally got out of my seat and ran after him and said, "Hello, Mr. Griffin. My name is Talicia. I would love to have coffee with you." And he said, "You were the only one that stayed awake during my my presentation." And we laughed about it. And Richard is touching 90, not quite there yet, but he and I developed a strong relationship. He drove me around the downtown area from Garrison Avenue, Gavin Avenue to Riverfront Drive, and we simply just engaged about his desires for downtown Fort Smith, what that meant for our community, and his role in protecting the asset, preserving the buildings in downtown. And that is Siri's listening to me, and it's talking to me about Richard Griffin right now. So Richard, again, he's a pillar in the community, and his legacy is long lasting. And some of the slides that I'm going to show you he was very instrumental in making a lot of these things happen. Connections. So I live in the Belle Grove Historic District with my family. Richard and I connected based on not only the preservation efforts, but when I said, Mr. Griffin, I own a home in the Belle Grove Historic District. He was jovial. He was so excited. He talked about my home. He knew exactly which one I was referring to. And the reason why I'm putting this picture in here is because that connection with Mr. Griffin allowed me the opportunity to get to know my neighbors, find more people that were in preservation. And one of my neighbors was actually in development, Justin Skinner. And I worked with the city of Fort Smith to actually get Justin nominated for an award for his work in the Belle Grove Historic District. That's his house that you see in the magazine there, Treasures of Fort Smith. And Justin has continued to purchase homes in the area, has a total of three right now that he's restored. Mila, who is with the Clayton House, she is a neighbor of ours. And there's so many others that I can name. But preservation is our community. It's Belle Grove, it's downtown, and it's beyond. And I should say, we, being my family, we're so excited of being a part of this, so much so that we were allowed our house to be pictures to be taken of, our home, all of the things. I say that to say when you live and reside in your communities, get involved, connect with others, because those connections allowed me to eventually, over time, become the connector. Keep in mind, during this time, I was not with 646. I was volunteering with 646 downtown, and it's unexpected, and being a part of all of the things that the unexpected with 646 brought to the community. The next chapter, from connector to connections, downtown to Main Street, Fort Smith. That's simply a chapter in my life, in our legacy here in Fort Smith. I never had the opportunity to just volunteer for a organization and that volunteerism turned into a job. And that's exactly what happened with 646 downtown. I took the opportunity to volunteer for my community, and because I was such a big advocate for preservation, for the arts in downtown, while respecting the buildings downtown, I was asked to continue the mission of 646, which eventually is now known as Main Street. The journey continued because these pop-up experiences that you see here, I was in the audience. Belle Star, Beth is the woman that you see with the florals. Coffee Co., Fort Smith Coffee Co. If you could see my pointer here, that's Kathy, Katie, and Gabe. They own Fort Smith Coffee Co. In the very back, Tyler Armstrong. He was very active in our legal group downtown. Now, our legal organization in the city of Fort Smith. Now he's the director of community engagement for Fort Smith Public Schools. So we really try to work to expand our community at all times. And there's such a connection there. And I love the fact that being a part of this group and being a connector. One of the things that I worked on as a volunteer, again, your efforts to preserve your community can be true volunteerism, is that I wrote the grant to the state of Arkansas for us to receive funding for this park. And it was a $30,000 grant that the state was giving away at the time. And I have to give this disclaimer, Jay was not a representative at that time. He was not a representative at that time. And I reached out to several, and they endorsed this pocket park, which revitalized a building that had caught a fire. And we basically leased that park out. We built it up, provided events and free activities there for the community to come and to convene. Next, this is one of the projects that I had after I became executive director of 646 Downtown. But as a volunteer, the Akuta House, which is the rainbow house that you see there in the colors, we had an exchange where we swapped out, we traded properties, and we were able to get this property, give it to the city of Fort Smith after we raised over $900,000 to get that changed into a park. And you'll see three pillars that are three statues, which are pillars in my mind of what how the city of Fort Smith was founded. Founded on legal law and order, which is Judge Isaac C. Parker, founded on healthcare with in the lower right-hand side, you see Mother Superior Mary Farrell. And then on the far left, you cannot see the father of education, if you will, and that is John Carnell, which a school was actually named after him. And if you want more information about his life, I know that Mila and the Clayton House was really working to bring his story to life and make it even bigger. But again, preservation of our story is so important and how we curate these quality pieces with the community in mind. And not only do we have these three statues, we also have Bass Reeves as you come over the Oklahoma Bridge. And then we also have in Cisterna Park, William O. Darby. So again, this is all in our downtown and it's all community based. Pop-ups. Again, the skate park that we had, this was a pop-up with the unexpected, which everyone knows. And you can see in the back, the date is 2016. That park turned into that pop-up turned into a park, excuse me, with city and private sector contributions, we were able to put this park together. And it was truly a community event. The founder of 646 Downtown, Steve Clark, is there in the center next to the arrow, talking about how this was a opportunity to activate Riverfront Drive and blending the old with the new. Again, trying to make sure that preservation goes beyond buildings that are centuries old, but how do we create and blend with those buildings? Tours. If we do not get involved in education, guys, our future in arts, our future in preservation is all for naught. You'll see here one of the former owners of Bookish, a bookstore that's been downtown for years. They brought their students from the local private school to come and get a tour of one of our art installations. Again, community engagement, connecting with your community to preserve the things that are near and dear to your heart is what's important. Not leaving anyone behind. That was our claim to fame, is how can we engage people at many different levels, even if it causes a little discomfort. With 646 Downtown, now Main Street, we did kind of push the envelope a little bit, but we wanted to do it within a historical context. So if you look at these three flyers here, I won't go into detail regarding them, but it was our way during these Hispanic Heritage Month, also during Asian Pacific Islander Month and Black History Month, to really incorporate arts, incorporate history with movies, with music, and telling the story from those individuals that are impacted by the story. That was something that's always important to us. So just remember when you're out there giving your preservation remarks, think about the history and who is not at the table and what you can do to get them at the table. This is one of my favorite pieces, and this is Ben Ein. And this was during a time of Mental Health Awareness Month, if you will. We tried to get this launched, but it was right before COVID hit. And so Ben was not able to come down and install the piece himself. We had to use a local artist out of Northwest Arkansas to draw to draw his images. The reason why I say that this piece is important is because we were receiving calls from family members, parents who their children were not, and this again was prior to COVID, were committing suicide or were experiencing suicide ideation. They wanted our organization, 646 Main Street, to take on ownership of doing something to bring light to this crisis, if you will. And we had to think strategically on how can we be mindful of what's going on in our community, but do it in a very, very tasteful fashion. So we met with family member of a young lady who was 12 years old that had committed suicide, and just simply meeting with them, discussing what they went through, gave them hope. And we came up with this piece, which the family had since left the area before we were able to install it. But it's Imagine, and that's song by John Lennon. And it's basically imagine the possibilities that are available to you. We utilized a grant from Main Street to put this piece in place. So we are indebted to Main Street for allowing us to have this opportunity to put this mural up downtown. And in addition to this, we also had a forum online where Ben talked to children. He talked to family members about his journey through life as a teenager. So it was a very, very impactful experience. And we involved the community further by having the Fort Smith Western Arkansas Ballet perform during this piece installation. This is another one of my favorites. It was I Rise by Maya Angelou, and Laquina is an artist from South Africa, I think the UK. And with this piece, this is actually a juvenile justice system or juvenile detention center in Sebastian County in Fort Smith. And they wanted to give those students hope. And that's why we installed this piece. No one can see it unless you're juvenile or you're going into the detention center to volunteer. It's all about the kids for us. And these are performers with Western Arkansas Ballet, and they were performing with Alex Bavard. And we did a piece where they actually danced in one of the warehouses downtown. And it was a phenomenal experience. It brought out over 300 people in a warehouse just to see this art piece unfold. We talked briefly about Levitt. That was one of our in the bio. This is our riverfront. And if you've ever been to downtown Fort Smith and you have not experienced the riverfront, you are missing out. It is exploding with not only the activation of Riverfront Park with the Levitt Amp Fort Smith Music Series, which still continues to this day and kicks back off on September 25th. But you also have the U.S. Marshals Museum. You have the Skate and Bike Park, which I mentioned earlier. You also have the Community School of the Arts, the RV Resort Park, which is phenomenal if you're an RV person. We have 6.2 miles of trail along the riverfront. And then John Bell Jr. Park is also a piece that's there. And John Bell Jr., if you don't know, he was a gentleman that, with all of our preservation efforts, he wanted to make sure that things were accessible to those who were wheelchair bound or had difficulty navigating stairs, ramps, etc. And he made it his personal mission to really hold people accountable with our buildings. And not only that, but he was a phenomenal artist that preserved our legacy of downtown Fort Smith and Arkansas. So John Bell Jr., if you haven't experienced his artworks or his pieces, please Google his name. You'll see some phenomenal pieces in our regional art museum. They really have a lot of great pieces of his as well and sell some of his artifacts there or paint prints, excuse me. Next, I want to highlight this is one of my favorite slides as well because it's all about preservation and how thoughtful some of our developers are when they are creating pieces to last another 100 plus years. Their preservation focus. If you see this building at the very top, that's a former Sears building, which was reimagined. And the developer who designed this, he was not trained classically as an architect, but he did a phenomenal job, Rodney Gann. And he's providing quality residential living, and it was a great curation of mixing not only the residential living, but also with the um, mixed use. So he has people that are going to mirror that, and he's very selective with who he places in his spaces, which you can appreciate because you want people to be able to stay for a while and take care of the product. Now, I want to show you the guys' video and I hope that it works because the story continues. And the reason why I say the story continues is this is a piece from Tasha, Sasha, excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied here. Just one moment. From Tiger. And Sasha is his real name, and he is just finishing up the second coat of paint on the artwork that you see directly in the back of him. And it was an art installation, again, Main Street grant there. And you see the lighting there. That's the state building for us, and it's connected to a law office, and it's trying to activate a space for people to have a nice lighted pathway. So I'm going to see if I can click this because this is one of my last projects that we were trying to have it move forward. We had difficulty after difficulty, but luckily the new Main Street director, Amanda, shout out to Amanda if she's on the call, she was able to get it all knocked out. So I'm happy for that. So hopefully let's hope this video works because I just want you to see the progress with Sasha and see Amanda's work. So it was just a little snippet, but I wanted you guys to see the work of Sasha and what he does. And he is a local artist based in Northwest Arkansas. He is one of the nicest artists you will ever meet. He's very accommodating. He is very thoughtful. He's very detailed oriented. And he's also the same artist who actually painted the design of Ben Ein, the Imagine that I showed you earlier. And what Sasha did is he realized that the dimensions were slightly off when he was getting everything to scale that one night. I was downtown sitting, watching him and making sure he was safe around 11:30. And he said, Talicia, this is off. This is off, and he redid the entire mural, and it was to get the dimensions just right. So I just have to say that I'm a big huge fan of Sasha and his work. And again, he if you're looking for anyone, he is a quality gentleman and does a good job. So now I want to open the floor up for some questions. Well, I have one more slide. Let me not forget my last slide here. So I'm going to share the time. Just one moment. I'm trying to get this to share one more time. Okay, there it is. So one thing I tell people is that I cannot do what I do if it has not or was not for my family. They allow me the space to be who I am at all times. And this is a recent picture of us. That's Yuri saying, "Oh, there goes mom," and there's Jay looking like an old guy, and then Jag just being a typical 13-year-old. The thing is, if you don't have your community established, if you don't have your connections built and people that you connect with, you will never be able to be yourself. I think it's really, really important for everyone to embrace who you are in your work, whether it's in preservation, whether it's in Main Street, whatever it is that you do, because I am that person that's going to always be fighting for downtown, that's going to always be fighting for preservation, whether it's at a micro level or a macro level. As long as we're touching people, guys, that's what makes the difference in our work. I thank you all. And again, let's open the floor up for questions. I'm going to look at the chat here and questions. Rachel, are you
Thank
still
you,
there? Yes, I see
Talicia.
you there.
I'm here. Yep, I am here. Okay, y'all have time to type in questions. Oh, you see, Betsy, you can read your own comments. You got something in the Q&A. Let's see.
Yes, yes.
Okay. It's this from Ryan Biles. I love how you shared preservation is my community. That's a powerful statement, as many of us in the field tend to work in a specialty which tempts us to isolation. Thank you for sharing the fight for our downtowns in the context of multiple approaches, including preservation to contribute to vibrancy. And I just wanted to, while people, if y'all have plenty of time to think of things to ask Talicia, I know you've got questions. And I just wanted to say for people who may not be as familiar with downtown Fort Smith and the work of 646, I was just thinking back, like I remember whenever some of the first murals were installed. I mean, it was, and if y'all haven't seen them, you've got to go. I mean, you just have to. But did you ever, could you ever imagine that the work that 646 was doing with public art would end up being so visionary? Because now, look at the public art we have in the state now. But think about, can you like reflect on that a little bit about from the beginning?
Yes. So I have to say my son at the time was a toddler when we moved into Fort Smith. And I remember thinking to myself, we have nothing to do in Fort Smith for kiddos. So he and I decided one Labor Day weekend to go up to Tulsa just to hang out, do the Dave and Buster's thing, do the chili or the Cheesecake Factory, all of the things, right? We took our Fort Smith dollars to Tulsa, Oklahoma, hotel, all of the things. And as we were coming back, I will never forget, it was on a Monday, and we were crossing over the bridge, Rachel. And as we were crossing over the bridge, I saw this mural and then that mural. I'm like, what in the world just happened? And we stopped and I parked and we got out and we started looking and we started talking because I'm like, we just left. We had just left. And so what I did was I went in, when we got home, I started researching like, what is this? What's going on? All of the things. And that's when my volunteering began. That following weekend, there was a pop-up at the Blue Lion, which is downtown, and they were having poetry reading. They were doing all the things, and there was no one in the space. And I could not understand why is no one in the space when they were so loud and so bold with this artwork. And so that's what brought me to my journey with 646 at the time through the unexpected, which it's brought everyone to it, right? And one of the things that I found was at the time, 646 did not lean into the economic development side of it because the money was, it was coming in from the local contributors and but the buy-in was not quite there because the feedback was mixed, right? It was very mixed. And, even people across the state saying, oh, we don't want that here, right? Um, we don't want that type of art here. But then once people started realizing, hey, people are going to Fort Smith, this looks good. Then we started saying, hey, we're a part of that triad. If you think about it, the triad was the Clinton Library in Little Rock. Then you had the Crystal Bridges Museum and all the things there. Then you could have the unexpected. So you had this triad of distinctly different offerings, but all around arts and culture in Arkansas. In Arkansas, you had this. And you had world renowned artists across the world, And people were like, oh, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. And so it's again, with the unexpected, it was creating something that was truly unexpected, right? But when you found more and more people getting, the murals and things like that, you have to do a refresh. And that's what we started doing. How can we refresh this? How can we refresh this? And that's when we started leaning into more, okay, we need to be more involved with Main Street. We need to be more involved in preservation. We need to be more involved in all of these other things because that all works together for the community as a whole. So that was my kind of journey. I had an aha moment just like everybody else when I crossed the bridge but decided to roll up my sleeves and say, let me be a part of this because it was exciting, very exciting.
It's so exciting. And all the different pieces. I mean, it's a holistic approach. You have to have it. You can't just focus on one thing. Let's see here.
Not
You
at all.
got some more questions. The quality of murals in Fort Smith is amazing. How did you get the quality for all of them to be so high?
We actually had a curator that worked with us, Just Kids, and I have to also mention Claire Colbert. Claire, who is was one of the members of the Unexpected 646, as well as John McIntosh. They were there in the early years, and they basically leaned on this curator to find all of these unknown artists, but had phenomenal followers. So not only did they have the quality of work, but they had the influence, if you will. And once that was there, it was almost like, you know, getting the best record deal, right? You want that artist that's quite not there yet, so that you can get the best rate, to get the best price before they hit. And it was you guys remember the arrows that were down that came up. That particular artist, Deface, also had the Native American woman on the mural on just as you come over the bridge where the Ferris wheel is located. So Deface was a little unknown before he came to Fort Smith, but he became known while he was in Fort Smith for something completely different, completely different. So his his claim to fame really helped us because that's what put Fort Smith on the map because they're like, who is this artist Steve Face? Where is he? Well, he's in Fort Smith, Arkansas. He's in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And again, Claire and John were a part of that foundation building, which created this quality. So you can't go backwards. So John and Claire, kudos to them for making the space work. Kudos to Steve Clark for having the vision to create 646 and say, I want to bring the art that I've seen across the world to Fort Smith. and pull a team together to execute that vision. And that's exactly what it was. All I was just sitting back, enjoying the beauty of what these three created and adding just a little bit.
I think more than just a little bit, but let's see. What struggles and or roadblocks did you encounter doing work downtown?
People. And that's why I say in the slideshow, get those connection points together. And then once you have those connection points established, you are just building your credibility. And if people can't trust you, they will not reach out to you. And sometimes building that trust takes a couple of years and a couple of knocks against the wall and head, you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And my Main Street people on there, we share a lot about, oh my gosh, this person, that person. And you're like, we're not alone. And it's the commonality, the common thread is just people. And they want to be able to trust you. And we had a situation where property owners would call and say, Talicia, can you help with this? Can you help with that? And I'm like, absolutely, absolutely, I can help. But there are times when property owners put you in the position that they don't want to be the bad person with their tenants, right? But they want to help their tenants. And so there was a situation that occurred where I was asked to assist when we had some construction going on downtown. Um, Bent over backwards trying to contact the police department, this group, this group, this group. Well, we pulled everything together. Persons agreed to the change, except for one. And that one person, we said, let's make it noted that this person did not agree to this change and have that on record, because that's, if you're a person of your word, you need to do that. And everyone said, okay, this person didn't agree. Well, someone else said, oh, after everything had been done, oh, I don't agree either. And it was the person that facilitated everything. So it was kind of like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So that was difficult. That was difficult because the person did not want to accept the response because it didn't she didn't want to accept what happened because it didn't yield the results that she expected it to yield. But it didn't have anything to do with that, and it was how she went about going and handling it. And from that, you just don't take things personal. And that's the story you have to tell others in different roles. Do not take it personal. You just have to do your job, do your best, communicate, 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 over communicate. And if you have your over communication, meaning your receipts, you say, here's all of the communication that took place. I hate that that person felt that way, but it's still their right to feel that way. So sometimes you just have to let things go. Let things go.
Yes, yes, you do. That's good advice. And in any kind of downtown neighborhood situation, there's going to be a lot of different personalities.
Yes.
Not everybody's going to get along. Okay, let's see. Any suggestions for helping communities embrace and preserve what we have, and how to change the narrative from old and dilapidated to a treasure? Good question.
So funding is the biggest hurdle for a lot of people is funding. So in as you're going through this whole process, what are some little wins, small wins that you can do to protect the asset? And it could be say, hey, let's start out with some windows. Let's start out with a new door. And just because the building is not in a condition that it could be leased out, you can at least do some small improvements with planters. If it's a downtown storefront that's underutilized or not utilized, put art in it. It's very, very simple to have some students from your local schools create some pieces to put in the windows. You can also ask a clothing store, someone that may be in a different part of your downtown or outside of your downtown area, and say, would you be interested in just putting some of your mannequins in the window so that we can soften the look. Talk to that property owner, get them to put some LED lights because they're solar operated now. 10 years ago, there wasn't, so they don't necessarily have to have electricity on in the building. It's just putting those things in there, cleaning out the windows, making sure that they're nice and beautiful, and then help people to imagine the space. I think that's what people don't realize. We're visual learners or visual people. We want to see, we want to touch, we want those sensories, we want our five senses to be touched. If I'm in a restaurant, I want to smell food to draw me into the experience. If I'm on the website, I can't feel that, right? So those pictures visually of that food need to be popping on there. If you want someone to have a restaurant in a space, and let's say it's a food truck, say, would you mind popping up in front of this building here that's empty? We're going to talk to the landlord and see if we can put set up right in front of there, not utilize their space, but get permission. And if they're constantly getting people into that food truck that's right in front of that building, maybe they may say, oh, well, you want to open up and just put people in there if it's a bad weather day and you can put some outdoor seating in there. Well, sure. Well, we'll turn the power on for that. So you just start building the momentum by creating the opportunities, creating the spaces for people to convene.
Thank you. It's a great answer. Okay, let's see. Is property ownership hard to find in downtown? Let's see. Is enthusiasm maybe hard to find for improvements such as murals, especially when they're absentee owners for the buildings? I'm assuming that you put murals on.
I would say yes. So I'll use as an example the last mural that we showed with Sasha, and that project took 2 years because it was working with the state of Arkansas because they actually had that building, and no one wanted to pay for power, right? No one wanted to pay for power because we wanted to string lights back and forth. The other piece of it was you're dealing with not one but two owners. So you have the state building and then the private owner here. Well, that private owner changed hands on us midstream. So we got the private owner signed on, everything was good, and then we were working on the state, and by the time we got the state, yes, we're good, it changed ownership on us. So then we had to go back and curate that relationship with the new owner and just, can you just let us attach yourself? You're not going to, do the okey doke and have us paying for electric, are you? We're like, no, 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 no. So it just happens. And you say, you can only say so much again if they cannot visually see the experience. That's the hard part. So we basically started with conversations first. We had local architect create designs of the possibilities once we had it kind of finalized with the new owner and said, see, this is what it's going to look like. Oh, okay. It's easier when you have the visual. So if you do not have an architect in your back pocket that can do some pro bono work for you, I highly recommend you do that. Or you get pretty good with Photoshop and try to figure it out. But if you have visual aids for people, it goes a long way. In addition to, again, having the connection points, because I tell you, I put a lot of sweat equity into emails and phone calls. And hey, did you get that email that I sent you? I would love to hear from you. Oh, is your office located here? Because I'll be more than happy to stop by. So I was that person that was just kind of, let me keep going, keep going. And eventually you see what you see.
Thank you. I've got another question for you. What is it could be about anything, any positive change that you would like to see anywhere in downtown Fort Smith? Could be residential neighborhood change, could be down like commercial downtown. What's something that
Ooh,
needs to happen, even if it's small?
for me, it's price point, right? For me, it's the pricing of things because when you look at a downtown property, whether it's residential or commercial, it costs money to bring some of these artifacts back to life, right? Um, I think about my home, so I'll go residential first. We got a quote to raise the basement and just got to get it taken care of. $30,000 for something you won't see with the foundation. You know, that's significant. Is
Mm-hmm.
there's not anything wrong, but we're like, let's see, because we're going to eventually have to do this. And so when you think about that type of funding, when people can paint their house, get new plumbing, all of those things, and you're just, oh, I mean, check out my foundation. Makes a big difference. When you go into a property downtown and you don't have a lot, but you have a love for downtown, elevators, sprinkler systems, fire, that can quickly throw someone out of budget, all of the variables associated with that, or you may not even be able to be a player because of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying to relax on codes or anything like that, but what I am saying is if we had codes that were mindful of older buildings and trying to work with potential developers, residential on small developers, small residential developers and commercial, it could facilitate faster growth, like the story of Justin Skinner. Justin started out with one home, two homes, three homes, just in our neighborhood, just
Mm-hmm.
in our neighborhood, which was, and all three of those homes were in disrepair. And he used tax credits
Yeah.
to make that happen. So
Mm-hmm.
again, programs like that, but educating people on those programs and making the cost to entry much less than what it is right now.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. And it's an issue that I think we across the field struggle with, and we need more incentives. There's never enough, there's never enough incentive. So thank you. And we,
Okay.
remember to talk to your husband and all of our lawmaker friends about the importance of preservation incentives.
Yes.
That's for everybody on here. Any other questions for Talicia? If not, then I will thank you so much for participating and for speaking and sharing your story with us, Talicia. It's so good to see you. I know everybody agrees. And
Thank you.
thank you all for watching, and we will see you next month.
Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.